All right. Today we are going to be talking about drug use among teenagers and how easily the drugs are accessible. Coping mechanisms among teens. Coping mechanisms of life stressors include alcohol consumption, and drug use among teens has escalated. Social isolation of teens leads to an increase in depression and drug use. As you enter high school as a child, you will graduate as an adult. The 4 years is full of growth, hardships, and self-discovery. Teens see this as an opportunity to experiment with drugs and alcohol. Some teens that start doing drugs will suffer consequences. Why teenagers use drugs? The top 2 reasons is 1, peer pressure, which will keep them up with the popular people, and 2, they believe it is a study aid, which will boost their grades. Their curiosity can be too much to resist. Drug use among teens. Approximately 13% of people who start smoking marijuana as teenagers become dependent on it. There are other drugs that teens in high school use. Listed below are some of the top 5. Regular marijuana use can cause a drop in IQ of up to 8 points. Nearly 3,300 teens try weed for the first time every day, which is why this is a problem impacting high schoolers. According to one study, 12th graders who smoke marijuana are 65% more likely to crash their car. Among 12th graders in the U.S., 1 out of 8 drove after smoking marijuana at some point in the last 2 weeks. 1 in 5 rode with the driver who'd been smoking. Approximately 2.5% of seniors are caught up in cocaine use. High school deaths are reported each year for drug uses. The effects of drug use in high school. Biological consequences of addiction include brain abnormalities, slowed thinking, impaired learning and memory. It can also deplete the brain of certain chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, sending teens into a prolonged depression and leaving them susceptible to more destructive behaviors. Substance abuse in high school can also stunt growth. There are many signs to detect marijuana use within a person. Here are a few: bloodshot eyes, foggy or slow memory, strongly increased appetite for food, or lack of activity. There are many more signs. Marijuana effects on the body. Suffer lung irritation and bronchitis, less physically damaging, and abuse of this may lead to other drugs that are. There are effects on the mind. It relaxes inhibitions, less likely to absorb and retain information. Perceptions of time and space are distorted. You should not drive, but teens believe they are able to and still get behind the wheel. There are easy access of drugs. Teens can find drugs through a friend, through word of mouth, and on the internet. Most kids don't have to look any farther than others in their school. Nearly 44% of high school students know a classmate who sells drugs. Teens go to school about 180 days every year, which leads them to have the access of getting their hands on drugs super easy. Sociological perspective on drug abuse. Why do drugs affect a person's behavior, mood, perception, and other qualities? How drugs affect areas in the brain and the neurotransmitters that cause a particular drug's effects. Biological factors explain why some people are more likely than others to use drugs. Biological research is more cumulative, but it assumes that some people are particularly vulnerable to the effects of drugs. These people are more likely to experience very intense effects and to become physiologically or psychologically addicted to a particular drug. There are 4 sociological theories. Socioculture theory, which is environmental factors cause differences in use rates for different compounds. They have been based on observations of similarities of differences between groups or subgroups. Labeling theory. This doesn't explain why use begins, explains why a person comes to view themselves different or deviant from society. Deviance means how much a person perceives themselves as different from the norms of society or culture. Supercultural theory. There are relationships between culture, social organization, and alcohol use. Subculture theories. Many differences among groups in the same population, which examples are age, race, ethnicity, or religion, all have an impact on use rates. Alright, and then the solution to drug use. We know that it can be difficult to reach out for help, especially our society often stigmatizes and shames people who are suffering from addiction. A child's life is far more important than what another person may think. Your professional of choice can help you determine the best course of action, and depending upon the severity of addiction, they might encourage inpatient or outpatient drug rehab. Prevention including education and observations of signs of drug use. There are steps to overcome a drug addiction. 1. Handle the physical addiction first. Do an initial detox. 2. Learn how to cope with life skills without resorting to drug use. 3. Intensive one-on-one counseling. Addicts are more likely to listen to someone who has actually been through addiction. Some people prefer group therapy to open up to a group, but others prefer to keep it between them and one other. Drug use among teens has escalated and is a very serious issue that needs to be studied and talked about.